All right, so welcome to another deep dive where we take your curiosity and, well, we make it our own.
Yeah, exactly. We take the stuff that you're interested in and kind of distill it down to to the good bits.
The insights. Yeah. So if you want to sound super smart at your next cocktail party or wherever you want to drop some knowledge, this is
Mhm.
a great place to start listening.
Absolutely. And today we are diving deep into the world of Archimedes.
Archimedes. Okay, so we've got kind of the usual sources. I feel like we often have Wikipedia
Of
excerpts.
course, yeah, a lot of good stuff there. And we also have some dedicated Wikipedia entries.
Yes, on things like Archimedes' principle.
Yes, yes, and the Archimedes screw as well.
And then something that I think is kind of a neat addition is an article from Mark Allen's engineering
Oh,
publications.
yeah, that's a good one. It's called Late Great Engineers, Archimedes of Syracuse.
Okay, cool. So let's see what we've got. What's the mission here today?
Well, I think, we all know about Archimedes and the Eureka
Mhm.
moment and all that good stuff, but there's a lot more to him than just that.
Yeah, so we're gonna kind of look past the myths and the legends and really focus on the verifiable, engineering achievements.
Exactly. The things we can really point to and
Mhm.
say, wow, this guy was incredible.
So let's get started. So who was this guy? I guess we should start with that.
Right. So Archimedes was a Greek mathematician, physicist, engineer, astronomer, and inventor.
Wow, that's a lot of
A
titles.
true polymath, as they would say. And he lived in Syracuse.
Syracuse, and that's in Sicily, right?
That's right. A Greek city-state in Sicily.
Okay.
And he lived from approximately 287 to 212 BC.
Okay, so way back.
Oh, a while ago. And we don't have a ton of biographical information from back then,
Makes sense.
but we do know generally when and where he lived,
Okay.
and we also know that he was connected to King Hiero II.
A king. Okay, so he was somebody important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, one of the coolest things about Archimedes is the role he played in defending Syracuse during the Roman siege.
Oh, yeah, this is the Second Punic War, right?
That's right, from 213 to 212 BC. And we get this account from Polybius, a historian who lived about 70 years after Archimedes' death.
Okay, so not too far removed.
Relatively close in the grand scheme of things.
And so what did he do? Did he just, like, build a wall or something?
Oh, no, no, no. He was much more clever than that. Archimedes actually applied scientific principles to warfare.
Whoa. Okay, so he was like the original engineer.
You could say that he designed all sorts of incredible war machines that really messed with the Romans.
Okay, give me some examples.
Well, for example, he improved catapults so they could launch projectiles with way more power and accuracy.
Oh, wow. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, and he also came up with these crane-like machines that could swing around and just wreak havoc.
Oh man, like a medieval crane.
Kind of, yeah, but much more ancient. And then, of course, there were all sorts of stone-throwing contraptions as well.
Stone throwing contraptions, huh? So he was really into like hurling things at the enemy.
Well, it was effective. And Polybius even wrote that the Romans suffered heavy losses thanks to Archimedes' inventions.
So he was single-handedly like holding off the Roman army?
Well, maybe not single-handedly, but he was definitely a major factor in the defense of Syracuse.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else did this guy come up with?
Well, one of the most famous inventions attributed to Archimedes is the Archimedes claw.
The claw, what is that?
Sometimes it's also called the ship shaker.
Ship shaker. Okay, now you've got my attention.
Imagine a giant crane arm with a huge metal grappling hook on the end.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they would drop this hook onto an attacking ship and then use the crane to just yank it up out of the water.
Oh my gosh, that's brutal.
It could capsize the ship or even cause it to sink.
And this actually worked.
Well, according to some modern experiments, it's definitely plausible.
Really?
Yeah, there was a TV documentary in 2005 where they built a version of the claw, and it actually worked.
Oh, whoa. So this guy was like 2,000 years ahead of his time?
He was a true visionary.
Okay, so we've got catapults, we've got ship-shaking cranes. What other kind of engineering feats did this guy pull off?
Well, let's move on to something a little less destructive, but equally impactful. The Archimedes screw.
The Archimedes screw. Okay, I've heard of this one, but I don't really know what it is.
So it's basically a device for lifting water from a low level to a higher level.
It's like a pump?
Kind of, but it's much simpler. That imagine a screw-shaped surface inside a pipe.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And when you rotate the screw, it scoops up water at the bottom and moves it upwards along the spiral path.
Oh, okay, so it's like a spiral staircase for water.
Exactly. And it's a really efficient way to move liquids against gravity.
And Archimedes invented this.
Well, that's the thing. It's actually a bit more complicated than that. The Archimedes screw was developed in Egypt earlier,
Oh, really?
but Archimedes famously described it around 234 BC during a visit to Egypt.
Okay, so he might not have invented it, but he definitely popularized it.
You could say that, and he probably made some improvements to the design as well.
And what was the screw used for?
Well, for one thing, it was used on King Hiero II's massive ship, the Syracuse.
The Syracusia, tell me more about this ship.
It was a behemoth, considered the largest ship of classical antiquity. It could carry hundreds of people, some accounts even say close to 2,000.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
And it even had amenities like gardens and a gymnasium on board,
A floating palace, basically.
basically. And the Archimedes screws were used to pump out any water that leaked into the hull.
Okay, so essential for keeping this giant ship afloat.
Exactly. But the Archimedes screw wasn't just for ships. It was also used for irrigation.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, they could use it to efficiently transfer water from low-lying sources to agricultural canals.
So this one invention had applications in like so many different areas.
Absolutely. And it's still used today.
Really?
Yeah, you can find them in wastewater treatment plants for dewatering and even as screw turbines in small hydroelectric power plants.
Wow. So Archimedes' invention is still powering our world today.
In a way, yes, it's a testament to the enduring brilliance of his design.
All right, so we've got war machines, we've got water pumps. What else is on the Archimedes highlight reel?
Well, let's talk about Archimedes' principle.
Archimedes' principle. Now, this is the one with the eureka moment.
Right, that's the famous story.
Yes. So remind me how that goes.
So the story, as we know it, was written by Vitruvius, who lived much later.
Okay, so it might be a little embellished.
Maybe. But it's a good story nonetheless.
All right, I'm all ears.
So King Hiero II had a new gold crown made, but he suspected that the goldsmith had cheated him.
By mixing in some silver.
Exactly. So he asked Archimedes to figure out if the crown was actually pure gold without damaging it.
Okay, so that's a tricky challenge.
It is. And supposedly Archimedes was racking his brain over this problem when he decided to take a bath.
Of course, the classic bathtub moment.
And as he got into the tub, he noticed that the water level rose.
Yeah, that's what water does.
Right. But it was this seemingly ordinary observation that sparked a brilliant realization in Archimedes'
That
mind.
eureka moment.
Precisely. He realized that the amount of water displaced by an object is equal to the object's volume.
Oh, okay, I see where this is going.
So if he could measure the volume of the crown and compare it to the volume of an equal weight of pure gold, he could determine if the crown was less dense due to the added silver.
Because silver is less dense than gold.
Exactly. And the story goes that Archimedes was so excited by this discovery that he jumped out of the bath and ran naked through the streets, shouting, "Eureka!"
I have found it!
That's right, a truly legendary moment in scientific history.
Okay, so that's the story, but what exactly is Archimedes' principle?
Essentially, it states that a body immersed in a fluid experiences an upward buoyant force equal to the weight of the fluid it displaces.
Okay, so the more water an object pushes out of the way, the more buoyant it is.
Exactly. And this principle has all sorts of applications in shipbuilding, submarine design, and even just understanding why things float.
So it's not just about crowns and bathtubs.
Not at all. It's a fundamental principle of physics.
Okay, so we've covered war machines, a water pump, and now the laws of buoyancy. What else did this guy figure out?
Well, believe it or not, he also made significant contributions to our understanding of levers.
Levers, like the thing you use to pry open a paint can.
Well, yes, but Archimedes was thinking about levers in a much more theoretical way.
Okay, how so?
Well, he provided a mathematical proof of how levers work in his work on the equilibrium of planes.
So he was like the first person to really understand the math behind leverage?
You could say that, and this understanding led to his famous, quote, "Give me a place to stand on and I will move the earth."
That's a bold statement.
It is, but it illustrates the power of leverage with the right lever and a place to stand. You can theoretically move anything no matter how heavy.
So he was basically saying that he understood how to amplify force using simple machines.
Exactly. And he didn't just theorize about levers, he also designed practical applications like block and tackle pulley systems.
Oh yeah, those things are super useful for lifting heavy objects.
They are, and they're still used today in construction, shipping, and all sorts of other industries.
So Archimedes' understanding of levers has had a lasting impact on technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
His work laid the foundation for our modern understanding of mechanics.
Okay, so we've covered war machines, water pumps, buoyancy levers. Is there anything else this guy did?
Well, there are a few other inventions or discoveries that are attributed to him, though some are more speculative than others.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, one is the odometer, a device for measuring distance.
Like the thing in a car that tells you how many miles you've driven?
Well, sort of. Archimedes' odometer was a cart that supposedly dropped a ball into a container after each mile traveled.
Oh, wow. So it was like an ancient version of a step counter?
Kind of. It was a
Yeah.
clever way to measure distance in those days.
So this guy was like a walking, talking invention machine.
He was incredibly inventive, that's for sure.
Okay, so what about this heat ray thing? I've heard stories about Archimedes using mirrors to set Roman ships on fire. Is that true?
That's one of the most famous stories about Archimedes, but unfortunately there's no contemporary evidence to support it.
So it's probably just a myth.
Most likely, but it's
Yeah.
a cool myth nonetheless.
So how does the story go?
The idea is that Archimedes arranged a bunch of mirrors, probably parabolic reflectors, to focus sunlight onto the Roman ships.
And this concentrated sunlight was so intense that it set the ships on fire.
That's the story. And while it's physically possible to do something like that, it would have been incredibly difficult to pull off on the scale described in the legend.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It would have required a huge number of perfectly aligned mirrors, and the ships would have to be relatively stationary.
So not very practical in a real battle situation.
Not really.
Mhm.
But the story does speak to Archimedes' reputation for ingenuity.
Yeah, if anyone could figure out how to set ships on fire with mirrors, it would be him.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about his work in astronomy? I know he was interested in that too.
Right. So we know from Cicero that Archimedes built these incredible planetariums.
Planetariums, like the things you go to see star shows in.
Kind of, but these were ancient mechanical models that showed the movements of the sun, moon, and planets.
Wow, that's pretty advanced for his time.
These devices would have required a deep understanding of astronomy and mechanics.
So he was basically building like mini working models of the solar system.
That's a good way to put it. And these planetariums might even have been precursors to the famous Antikythera mechanism.
The Antikythera mechanism, that's the ancient Greek astronomical calculator, right?
That's right, an incredibly sophisticated device for its time, and it's possible that Archimedes' work paved the way for its creation.
Wow, so this guy really was a genius.
There's no doubt about it.
Okay, so to recap, we've got war machines, water pumps, the laws of buoyancy levers, an ancient odometer, a maybe mythical heat ray, and some really sophisticated astronomical instruments.
That's quite a list of accomplishments.
It is, and it's all the more impressive when you consider that he lived over 2,000 years ago.
His work truly laid the foundation for many of the technologies we rely on today.
Absolutely, and I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is the power of curiosity.
I agree. Archimedes was clearly a man who was driven by a thirst for knowledge and a desire to understand how the world worked.
And that curiosity led him to make some truly groundbreaking discoveries and inventions.
It did, and it's a reminder that we should all strive to be a little more curious about the world around us.
Because you never know what amazing things you might discover.
Exactly. So keep asking questions, keep exploring, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next Archimedes.
All right, folks, that's our deep dive into the world of Archimedes.
Thanks for joining us.
And remember, stay curious out there.
Absolutely.
Bye.